Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's June 13th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and you can see it was another ugly day. This was a very bearish bar. We did close a little off the lows. It's not enough to get excited about, but we were very oversold all over again. I mean, it only took. We went sideways there a little bit. Where I wouldn't really say we were overbought here. We were here, so it's been multiple days from here to here, but really it only took 3 days to take back what it took almost a week to, or a little more than a week of trading to get. So not good. Another trader sent me this. This is a way you could look at it too. I tend to agree with him. There is a channel right here, this yellow channel. We do have a break, and now we have a new low in place. Now, will we correct, or is there something bigger here maybe going on? I mean, it's very possible that we've got a channel right here as well. I mean, it fits. So let's just put it on there where it makes it a little easier to see. And you can see that. If that's the case, we're not through to the downside, but hopefully we'll get a bounce soon thereafter. So we may be in a longer term sell-off here. That really looks valid to me. I'll just be honest with you. The midline's holding, the lower line's holding, the trend line's holding. It looks very valid to me. So is it valid? I guess we'll find out. But I think that we've still got more room to the downside a little bit here. And then hopefully we'll see a bounce, or we could just continue to trend down in this blue channel on the lower side of the channel. You just never know. We may go back and forth between that and the midline if this thing stays weak, but that's some pretty serious selling right there to go from, we really went from almost 4,200 to, almost 3,700 in a week or so, a little over a week. That's a 500-point move. Not good. So I think we're still in a downtrend. Any rally is probably going to be short-lived, in my opinion, for a while. If we don't get this economy turned around, get gas down, who knows where we're headed. Until we get gas prices down and get this inflation in check, I think we're in serious trouble. The market is. So can they raise it rate some more? I think they're going to have to. If they're not, I don't know what we're going to do. But anyway, I don't want to get off into that. Let's stick to charts and trading and trades here. So let's flip over to the intraday chart. You see the daily chart there, very, very ugly. There is a gap here. Not only is there a gap on the daily chart, there's a gap on the intraday chart because you don't have this 24-hour trading. So the gap is probably bigger than what you see right there overall. So I think we opened way down here, so there would be a gap between that open and this low, as well as from this high to this low. So something to think about on a rally. When we do rally, I would see prices trying to fill those gaps soon. So we'll see what happens, though. Let's flip over to the other chart. And you can see it here. We spent a lot of the day going sideways. But really, we had two legs down in the end. Went a little further than that, actually. But yeah, we had two legs down, and then we had this correction, and then we started down again. And that's what I warned about this morning in the mid-morning update, that you can get these huge rallies, and they'll scare you out of a trade, and then the thing will just turn and continue lower. So, but you can't ride these out unless you get a really good entry way back here somewhere. It's not worth riding these out. You just about have to exit and then look to re-enter. So just don't let these big moves take your profits back. Just exit and wait for another good setup. It's one thing to ride out some of these smaller corrections, but don't try to ride something like this out because you'll get burned. And you'll get back a lot of money and probably end up exiting just before it turns down again. That's what usually happens. Everybody get that last capitulation and everybody exits, and then boom, The bottom falls out again. Look at it, takes it all back real quick. And we rally back up, and then it just slowly takes some more, and we end up making a new low down here. So I marked some green ones in here. There's a good many green ones, but there's probably some others you could argue to be green. It got to the point where there's so many trades that why worry about those trades? Stick to the sure things. If there's something that looked pretty good, I still marked it if I thought it was a little aggressive. But for the most part, on a day like this, stick to the easy stuff. I mean, people ask me about trades, and I'll say I don't like it, and then they'll want to know, well, why? Well, because if it's not a high probability trade, you don't want to take it. I mean, there's not a whole lot to explain about that. You want to stick to the sure things. And if you can't tell the difference yet, then you're not quite there yet either. So what looks good to you to a good chart reader might be a very ugly trade. So you got to remember that. So it may not be anything more than just what the chart's telling you. So, I mean, if you're looking at this and you see this resistance here, well, you don't want to be going long up here. Not unless you get a trap like right here. And you can see I marked those green anyway. The only reason is because there's still a little room left. But if you're seeing this resistance up here, you got to be very careful getting long up here. You'd be better off to sit still and wait and take the shorts. So, I mean, that's not exactly the greatest example, but that's just kind of what I'm getting at. Why wouldn't I like going? Why didn't I mark these blue? Because it's a big downtrend, and most of your trades are going to be off the highs, and we're going sideways, but we traded down strongly into this, so we're probably going to break out and go strongly down, which is exactly what happened. And so you want to stick more to the shorts, and you probably only want to take a long as if you get a super good setup or a trap or something. So just keep that in mind. And here you might have been a little more interested in longs just simply because you had a break of the yellow channel and you finally had a new low in place here. You actually had one, well, maybe you didn't quite get a new low there, but you can still play the range here. But you got to be real careful. I only marked one blue one here, and that's because there's a trap there. And the prices have been going up and down, up and down, up and down. So, but anyway, let's zoom in and go through these trades. 7 o'clock came just in here as we're making these lows here, and then we took off to the upside. I don't see anything worth taking there that early, but when you came up here and you really had this triple test and lower high and the big bearish bar, it's a little bit congested, but the trend is down in a triple test, and you got plenty of room back to the EMA in case it does bounce. I like that trade. And if you just catch that one trade today, maybe you get a runner, and maybe it's the only trade you need. And somebody will probably ask me about this there's a hidden second entry short there, but and if you don't understand what a hidden second entry is, don't worry about it. It's a little more advanced. I mean, basically, if you went to a little smaller chart, you'd actually see a second entry right here. There's a move up, a move back, which is where your second entry short or first entry would occur, and then it moves up and then turns down. Before you start trading stuff like that, you need to be very skilled at this. So don't pay a whole lot of attention to that if it doesn't make sense to you, because you'll just slow your learning curve trying to worry about stuff like that. It's hard enough for new people to find just a second entry, much less a hidden one. So anyway, if you did see that, and you could look at that as a failure too, but really this looks like one move down. So to me, it just looks like a first entry short and a first entry long here, and you're heading lower, and your second entry didn't come to way down here. So because that's just sideways stuff right there. And then we bounce down here at the lows again, and you get a first entry, you shoot through the EMA, you pull back, you get a second entry, it confirms that trend line. So if it breaks higher there, it's a failure, plus it confirms that trend line, and you're probably going to have some shorts trapped that'll want to exit right there. And you can see once they pushed it higher, you had a big run up. And then of course you get what looks like a little bit of an overshoot. Maybe you don't have an overshoot there, because maybe this is just like that right there. I mean, it still fits. It's hard to know really. Doesn't much matter. you still get a first entry, second entry. I don't like that second entry just because it's below the EMA and this is a downtrend day, and but it comes back here and breaks lower and turns up and gives you really a higher low on a, that's a little congested area, a little failed breakout. So you may take that trade because we didn't quite get to the highs here, and then you break lower again and fail and turn up. I wouldn't wait till up here to go long, but if you want to be a little aggressive, maybe you go long on the engulfing bar when it goes past that bar, and you're just trying to get a scalp out of it and maybe ride it back to the highs there. And we don't even quite get back to the highs. And it turns down, comes back, and really I just traded that as kind of a lower high. Such a bearish bar. It's moved a little bit far to call it a lower high, so that's why I marked it green. But there's reasons to still like that trade. There's a good chance you're going to get another leg down. There's a good chance we're going back to the lows again. And the fact that we came up short means we might overshoot this side a little bit. I didn't expect it to do it that much, but you would expect prices to maybe overshoot it. But that's a good setup. And if you catch that, you may catch a runner all the way down there. And then you get a close outside, new low, and then it reverses. If that wasn't such a huge bar, I mean, it's 31 ticks, I say you got to wait on that because you're gambling a little bit trying to pick a low here. And that's just not a high probability trade. And then we're going sideways here. I didn't mark it, but that's a little congested range area. You got to be careful going long or short into that. You're better off just to avoid that. It runs up. You do get a second entry short. It's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's not a very good signal bar either. So runs back down, and they're trying to take it lower than they can. But notice here they can't take it higher either. So when you get this triple test right across here with this big bearish bar and plenty of room, I like going short there. I think that's a great opportunity because it may, you see how we pushed a little lower both those times? It's a good chance this thing may take off. It didn't actually happen on this one, but the next one it did. So, but that's what you're hoping for here. But at the very least, you know you'll probably get a scalp even if it bounces here, which it didn't do. It didn't bounce till way down here. So you would have got a little bit of a runner out of that. So that's a great opportunity right there. But drops on down, and you do get a higher low here, and you would expect prices to fail on this break lower. So when that broke lower right there and failed and turned up, and you got, as long as you got room back to the EMA, you're probably at least coming back to test this breakout area. And you can see it went a little bit higher there. But again, on a downtrend day like this and everything pointing down, I'd probably just skip that trade. And of course you make a double top here, and you get a first entry, and you get a second entry. So when prices break lower below that bar on right here, that's a failure. You could go on this bar, wait for it to close, and then just even go one tick there, because this is probably going lower now. And boom, the bottom just falls out of it. I mean, if you catch that one trade today, you probably caught a good one. Then you come down here and you get a first entry, you get a second entry short on the first break. I marked that one green because this is where your timing comes in. And you can see if you drew that up through there, there's really no break of that yet, R and U high. And we're not back to the midline, we're not back to the EMA, but it's really bearish too. So the key would be maybe see if you get a lower high, which you do here, and take that one. That's the better entry. And it just drops on down and then starts going sideways again. It's a little failed break here, but don't be trying to buy this market right here. We're in a downtrend. And then you get a first entry, second entry, right at the key entry point there. And again, you get a lower high here, breaks higher, turns down. I marked this one green just because there's a little bit of congestion there, sideways action, but it is right off that key entry point, so it's at a good spot where you might want to take the chance on it. Of course, you get a break, move down to a new low, and then you're heading back. And notice how we came up short here, and we came up even shorter here. That's telling you that you're starting to lose some momentum there. So you got to keep that in mind. And came up short here, and even more here. So, but this was almost just a little repeat pattern of this right here. You get a little two legs up, first close, convincing close outside, nice bearish bar, lower high comes here, it's the better entry. There's actually a failure here. I didn't mark this one, but it's one you could argue for. You should at least make it green. You can see it dropped on down pretty quickly, went sideways. The reason I didn't like this one was because we'd already, as I already showed you, we're coming up short here each time, and we're getting further and further away from this side, and we've had a break, and we got a break here. Had one, it looked like we might have one here, but it's not convincing until here. So maybe you take that trade. Then we're just working sideways. Again, I didn't put the little, this is a channel. And there's some reasons to think this thing is ending to the downside, or at least temporary, but still don't try to buy this. And if you're going to do this, you need a reversal. And notice you're working up. You get a first entry, and then a second entry. It breaks lower and turns up. So you know you probably got them trapped. The only problem is this one's a little congested too. I wasn't crazy about it. You could get burned here. We could turn down and make another leg down like that here. We didn't have our measured move yet, so there's still reason to think we could go lower there too. I don't see any other opportunity here. Then we're working down, and I don't really see anything I like. There is a failure here, but it doesn't set up very nice. And we're bouncing, and again, I don't see anything to the upside. This is just a retest, most likely on this. We run up, and then we're back, and you can see this channel coming down. You get a break, new low. Again, I don't see anything in there that would tempt me to go long yet till we get this higher low. And maybe you go long right there, because you do have your channel here with a break and new low, and prices are finding support there. You can see it. And then you make a higher low, and then you make a reversal. So if it breaks above that one, it's probably really going to shoot up, which it does. But it doesn't follow through. It comes back, and you get a few tests, and you could call that a triple test. It's a second entry long either way, right at the key entry point. It does confirm that trend line. So I like that one to the long side. And again, it just doesn't really take off. Then you get two legs back, and this actually breaks lower first and then turns up. It's always a little more risky entering on an engulfing bar, because most of the time you have to keep your stop over here till this thing closes. And sometimes it's taking on a little extra risk when this is not clearly going higher, although you can clearly see that trend line moving. And that's the only reason I marked that one. The second entry actually triggers there, but the failure turns out to be a trap. You definitely don't want to take the failed second entry long trying to go short there into that trend line, because they're just suckering people in, and then they trap them and run it up. There's a higher low here, but it's right into these highs across here. Come back to the trend line here. Again, I don't see a setup I would take. And finally, we come back once again, and now you get a second entry with a bullish bar right at the key entry point. There's a higher low here, but there's too much resistance across there, so skip that one. Yeah, you got a second entry long right there. And it finally takes off, runs to the upper side and turns down. And this is just two sideways. This is you got to close. Hang on, I'll back up here and talk about something real quick. Notice you got to close outside. It's not super convincing, so it's a little dangerous going long or going short right here. And I don't see anything to the long side, so there's just really no entry there. And the downtrend does continue, so we obviously did get a close outside and a new high. We're just chopping sideways, and again, you don't want to buy there. It's too bearish. You want to get some kind of reversal pattern or something, and you don't get that. And in fact, you run up, you get your close outside, first entry, second entry, and it quickly fails and turns down. I don't know if I'd wait and go short there right into the EMA, but maybe you go in on the engulfing bar. It turns out to be a good trade, but you just need to make sure you can get out before that EMA right there, because we should be going higher. That's not to be the case, though, and we just continue going lower here. And that's not a reversal pattern, because that's just That's one leg down, so that's a first entry. You run on down, and you get a first entry, second entry, but signal bar is no good, and you're just chopping sideways, break out and bounce. Again, you're working down here, so you don't want to buy that. You need something better than that to buy. And of course, you run up here, you get a close outside, a new high, and then you make a lower high. And there's reasons to argue for that one right there. I didn't mark it. It pretty much confirmed, it doesn't confirm that trend line, it's just the second move, so it doesn't confirm it till here. And I did mark it green, although it's a really big bar, so again, you'd have to just about enter on the engulfing bar right there, one tick below this green bar. But it's not confirmed here, so again, it's one you might take. If it was with the bigger bias, I'd probably say take it, but the bigger bias is well, it is with the bigger bias, but I mean, at the time, the short-term bias was up, and sometimes you get two legs, so if it made a second leg up, maybe you take the lower high or whatever, but I just think it's too risky. Especially with that being the first leg up after the close outside. Hopefully that makes sense. We drop on down. I don't see any entries here. There is a failure here, but it doesn't set up properly. And you actually get a break and a new low, and then you try to go first entry, and you try to go higher again there. So if it breaks below there, that's a second entry short. And we should be headed to the lower side here. That's exactly where it goes before it bounces. No trades to the upside. I think it's dangerous to take that first entry right there, especially on an engulfing bar. We move way too far to be a lower high. That's just chopping sideways. I just don't see anything else in here I like. You might argue, if this didn't have all these matching lows, you might argue for a reversal here. But it's not really where you're looking for a reversal, because we've already moved a long way to the downside, so it would just be like a continuation pattern, and it's not the same thing. You might look at it as a failed second entry, but it's not really a reversal, because we're not looking for a reversal there. So, and if you're going to trade it as a failed second entry long, it probably trap people. You wouldn't want to do it with all that support right across there, because it could bounce like it did there and stop you out, even if it does go lower. And so I just don't see anything else there before we get into 230. So a lot of trades today, and there's still a good many green ones in there. I'm just not crazy about some of those green ones. When you get a day like today, especially a big trend day, you're going to get some opportunities. So don't take a chance on some of that stuff. It's just not worth it. You're better off to wait for something better, because there's going to be one coming along with this much movement. So anyway, that's what we had today. So I don't see, the only thing I did want to talk about, I did want to show you this. Notice this channel here, and notice how we're in this channel, and then suddenly we went a little lower, and then we came up short, we went a little lower, came up a lot shorter. We're just kind of chopping along, and we went lower again, and then chopping along, and that's telling you, those are clues that, hey, we're losing steam to the upside, and every time more sellers come in until eventually the bottom just falls out of it there. So watch for that. Those are clues, and it doesn't mean for certain we're going lower, but if you get a good failure to the downside like that, and we've been coming up shorter every single time, that's telling you something. So learn to spot that, keep an eye on that. So I didn't want to talk about that today, but I think that was about it. So we're 24 minutes in this. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.